Ladies and gentlemen, this is a special moment. This is a special video. I've published a new book. I know that it is mirrored, right? It is unfortunate, but this is the new book that I have published. It is called Year of the Mask, and it deals with the Rona, with the scamdemic. And I would like to thank Amazon's shipping and handling, because this is the second time one of my books got effed in the badonkadonk. So thank you, Amazon, for ruining 2 copies so far. So this is my new book. And I have to add a disclaimer at the beginning. Okay? There are certain words and certain terms that I cannot use. The words that I want to use, they are forbidden. Because in any democracy, in any free country, you have the right you have the freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want as long as you say whatever we tell you to say. Okay? So I'm gonna have to use certain synonyms for certain words, So let's get to it. This book, Year of the Mask. Mask is a word that means masquerade. So it's a little bit of a word play here, because it can mean mask as in you're wearing a mask, or a masquerade is a ballroom in which people dance and pretend, and they wear get-ups and, of course, Renaissance masks. So that is why I chose this title. This book chronicles the scamdemic, the nonsense that has been happening for, 2.5 years, etc. It deals with the Rona and everything, all the ridiculous and the absurd things that have occurred. Why have I written this book on this topic? And I want to emphasize this. This book is mostly it's humor oriented. I use certain terminology. I use certain medical terms, but mostly this book is focused on showing and explaining all of the nonsense in a fictitious manner. Okay? When the scamdemic, when the Rona hit the market in early 2020, for about a month or so, I actually believed that this was possible, that this was real, that yes, we were under attack by an invisible critter, and it was serious business. Okay, but after the first month, I quickly realized what was going on, and many others. Now, the Rona. Okay, to me, the Rona is merely phase 1 of a larger blueprint. Okay, phase 1 is mostly over because a lot of people, which I consider to be naive and gullible, they took the milkshake. Okay, so this is a term I use. So when I'm saying the milkshake, I'm referring to the syringes and the injections and the boosters. Okay, so phase 1 is complete because a lot of people got the milkshake. Actually, they got multiple milkshakes, and we have seen the results. Okay, so the next phase, phase 2, I think whatever it's going to be, it's going to arrive. It's going to arrive suddenly. Just like it happened in early 2020. So, buckle up, folks, because one day soon, in a couple of years mostly, one day we're all gonna wake up, just like in early 2020, and we're gonna discover to our horror that phase 2 is underway. Whatever it's going to be. This is not over by a long shot. People, even today, people believe that the Rona, the scamdemic, is over, right? That a creepy, crawly, invisible little thing, it's done for because you took a couple of milkshakes. It's not so, okay? This is merely step 1, and there are other steps ready to hit all of us when we least expect it, okay? So in this book, I try to list all of the ridiculous nonsense that has happened for about 2.5 years. All of the mask wearing, all of the wash your hands and keep the distance, all of the ridiculous terms, all of the, the new normal, everything, or almost everything is in the book, and it is exposed for the ridiculous nonsense that it is. Now, when I think about this subject, the Rona, and everything that has occurred, I wake up every day. It's like waking up from a fugue state. It's like you can't believe, you cannot possibly entertain the idea that something so goofy and silly actually happened. But it did, and it lasted for 2.5 years, right? Mostly 2 years when it was serious, and billions, ladies and gentlemen, billions of people believed this nonsense, and they still believe this nonsense, and there is no way to help them, there is no way to enlighten them. They're dumb. Simply as that. They're dumb and gullible. The whole toilet paper scenario, so ludicrous. I think it's the first or the second chapter in this book. I call it the Great Toilet Paper Gold Rush. Yeah, you remember when a lot of bozos went around stores and just buyed, mountains of toilet paper because they thought that, shit was going down, right? Insane, insane. All of the ridiculousness, all of the silliness with the doctors and nurses and hospitals. And, I deal with this topic from A to Z. From the beginning of the outbreak, what caused it, some silly wet market in some place called Wuhan where a pangolin had unprotected, copulation with a bat or something. And in a couple of weeks, all over the world, we were done for. Quarantine and such, lockdowns, isolation, right? All of this is pure gibberish, right? It has been exposed time and time again for being absolutely a deception, right? Undeniable, right? But I've realized something, right? While I was writing this book, I talk about all of the authorities and all of the politicians and all of the people and governments who all of a sudden overnight, they just decided to agree. They all suddenly decided overnight to cooperate. Almost every government, almost every politician, right? And I talk shit about all of these people. I criticize everybody because everybody in any position of power, they sold us down the river without any evidence, without any proof, becoming tyrannical, becoming despotic, right? And nobody had anything negative to say about this. Because their rights were being taken away, because they were imposed, draconian rules and regulations, right? So in this book, I tackle all of these subjects, but most of all, I realized that while writing this book, mostly I am attacking the public at large, all of the people around us, you know. In the latter chapters of this book, while writing it, I realized that the real problem, the real thing that really irritated me beyond belief is the public. Every dum-dum, crawling about who swallowed this nonsense. This book mostly throws venom and acid and toxicity at the general population, the public at large, because they, let's just come out and say it. There are a lot of dumb motherfuckers floating around this joint, and there's nothing that any one of us can do to cure them. There is no antidote that can cure dumbness on such a scale, right? And listen, folks, I got a PhD in internet retardation. Okay, I've got experience, I'm an observer, I'm a researcher, and I've been paying close attention to all the trends and all of the silly nonsense for a lot of years. And I have come to a realization of sorts, right? I have concluded that, and this is just insight, okay, but I have concluded that stupidity, dumbness, can be genetically inherited from your parents, from your bloodline, from their DNA. This is my conclusion. It is both nature and nurture. But my argument is that stupidity, dumbness of such profound quality can only be inherited from the previous generation, from your parents, such and such, right? This is my explanation. This is the conclusion that I have arrived at, right? This is what has happened during the scamdemic. The scamdemic has shown us that most people have no willpower. They have no personality. They have no individuality. They have no cognizance. They are conformists. They are mindlessly obedient. They desire one thing and one thing only, and that is to never think critically for themselves. This is what has been revealed during the lockdowns and such, during the Rona. Most people have been shown and exposed to be a bunch of mindless fools who will obey anything without thinking, without questioning. The public at large had absolutely no problem being told to stay at home, don't go to work, be isolated from your family members, from your loved ones, from your friends. Be isolated, be segregated. All of your rights taken away, right? Being undermined and minimized to, a barnyard animal, livestock. Most people had no trouble at all being treated like cattle by the government, by the local authorities, right? And that's a sad thing. But this has finally been exposed, and nobody can deny any of this. Most people have no backbone, have no courage, have no balls, have no integrity, have no convictions, have no morality. They will go with the flow of things so long as they are comfortable and so long as the conditions are convenient. Okay? So I would suggest to all of these people that still believe this nonsense to stop pretending, stop swaggering about. And this is another problem that I have observed. Now, for at least a half a year, there hasn't been a real serious outbreak. Again, there hasn't been a new variation. There have been no lockdowns imposed, and people walk around on the street like nothing has happened. They have all the confidence in the world. They're proud of themselves, and I wonder why this is. How can somebody be so hypocritical, right? When the first lockdowns were imposed and you took the milkshake, you were trembling with your tail between your legs, and now you're walking around and mostly you are telling other people to do the same and take the milkshake and the boosters, right? You're doing all that and you should be ashamed of yourself, but you're not. All of these people that behaved in this heinous way today walk around as if they're angels, as if they're examples and role models. I remember this one time. I went to a store to buy a leather belt. And there was this old lady there, alone, and she had a mask on. And I was looking at the products, I was checking the merchandise, whatever, asking questions. And all of a sudden, this old lady with a mask, she told me, "Well, don't you have a mask, sir? Don't you want to wear one?" And I looked at her, and I said, "No, I don't." I turned around and got the fuck out of there. And that is how you lose a customer forever, right? I remember when the first lockdowns and distancings were imposed, I went to this corner store here, and I've been going to this store ever since I was a little kid, bro, right? So I go to my usual store, and there were a couple of people around, and they were talking outside the steps of the store, and I was like, okay, they're probably waiting for their friends or their friend that went in. So there I was, climbing the stairs, and all of a sudden, this Karen, she stops me and she says to me, "Sir, we're waiting in line, sir." Right? And she was so condescending, and I froze on the steps, and I thought, waiting in line? Like, you wait in line at the store. You don't wait in line outside the store, because the store only had like 2 customers, right? And then it hit me. That these bozos, had already swallowed the okie doke, right? They had swallowed the blue pill, they had swallowed the deception, and they were waiting outside because apparently indoors you can only have like 1 or 2 people at most. And I was just flabbergasted, right? And I got the fuck out of there. I didn't buy my beer from that place, right? And it's still, that line still haunts me, that Karen screeched to me, we're waiting in line, sir. And I thought to myself, of course you do. Of course you are. Sheep always do. Unthinkingly, mindlessly, right? But overall, folks, the Rona, the Scamdemic, and this book, to me, they are extremely amusing. I still can't believe that something so ridiculous happened. But it did. And because this has happened, and because billions of people proved to be mindless drones and normies, brainless fools, this proves to me, without a shadow of a doubt, that reality is not and cannot be real. Okay? It cannot be genuine, because something like this could happen, right? And of course, there is a lot of talk nowadays about the Matrix, about the red pill, the simulation theory, etc., etc. Because this has happened, because the Rona was allowed to happen, and because so many people swallowed the bullcrap, it proves to me, undeniably, that this world, everything around us, and most people are NPCs. Reality is not real. It cannot be real. If we were surrounded by actual individuals with a mind, this scam couldn't hold water, but it did. For at least 2 years, people were scared shitless that they were gonna die because of some bug, right? Because of some invisible entity floating around, right? And you only have to think critically for a second to understand that it was all a hoax, it was all a ruse, from beginning to end, and all of the players involved, they were laughing at you, boy. I mean, just watch any interview with all of these clowns. You know who they are. I mentioned them in this book, okay? All of the people involved, all of the elites, if you want to call them that, you know, all of the people of importance, all of the people of pedigree, you know who they are. Man, they ate this shit up. I think they were laughing 24/7, right? Because they played such a lame trick on the world. So cheap, so goofy, and yet the world bent over and accepted it without a whimper, without anything to say. Without anything to say. Right? There was one thing that I forgot to mention in this book, and I only realized after this shit was already published. And it's unfortunate, but I'm gonna mention it here. I did not talk in this book about our senior citizens, about our old people. Right? Because it really occurred to me. Old people, we've always been told, old people have experience. Old people cannot be gullible because they have went through life, they have life experience, etc., etc. They cannot be bamboozled so easily. They're not green behind the ears like us young people. However, during the scamdemic, during the Rona, they were the first to bend over and tremble in their diapers because they thought that they were gonna die. And a lot of people make the argument, well, a lot of people died during the lockdowns and such because, you know, old people are vulnerable, of course, because they're old, they're frail. No, old people died during the lockdowns and quarantines because they were murdered. They were murdered. And you only have to do a bit of research to find this out. They were murdered. Not a single person died of the invisible V word. They died of unnecessary complications. They died because of negligence. They died because of malpractice, and they died because of intention to do harm by doctors, nurses, etc. Right? So, if any old people are watching this video who still believe in the mainstream narrative, you know, and if you are a grandparent, I have to tell you, you have no business being a role model, you have no business being an example, and you have no business demanding respect from young people because you showed yourself to be a coward and a mindless fool that believes anything. You have no life experience. You have no brain whatsoever. And if you are a grandparent, you have no business educating your grandkids because you have revealed yourself to be a spineless coward. Okay? So the stereotype that old people are wise and they have knowledge and they're not, naive and innocent to believe nonsense, that has been disproven. They can be dumber than a sack of bricks, just like young people. And a lot of old people have revealed to be just as dumb or even dumber. Okay? So there are no examples to look up to. There are no older role models. Old people, immediately were terrified, horrified that they were gonna keel over, right? So you should dismiss the idea that when bad things happen, older people will give you advice and they'll give you a piece of knowledge because they have life experience. You gotta throw that shit in the trash. It's over. It's over, right? There are no more role models, and certainly old people cannot be trusted. They have all of this life experience. They have this audacity to demand respect because they have a venerable age. But when bad things happen, they bend over, which has happened time and time again. So this is one subject that I don't discuss in the book. Another thing that I discuss in the book is, all of our authority figures, the police, the military, doctors, physicians, nurses, people who work in, retirement homes, all of the people involved during this scamdemic, I ripped them a new one because all of them, willfully or unintentionally, it doesn't matter, they have all shown themselves to be serfs, servants, these obedient robots who would do just about anything for a paycheck. Okay? And I know there are exceptions to the rules. Not all doctors are murderers. I know. Not all doctors are incompetent. I know that. I know that there are exceptions. But for the most part, police officers, doctors, nurses, everybody, all the personnel, right? They have shown themselves to be against the public. And they have shown themselves to be mindless fools, right? And I guess now it makes sense because somebody like Henry Kissinger said a long time ago that people in the military and such, they are useful fools, right? And I think that Henry Kissinger knows what the fuck he's talking about. So all of our law enforcement people, all of our scions that we look up to, all of the politicians, all of the priests, all of the, lawyers, all of the fucking everything, right? In the military, in the health organizations, on every level, on every echelon, in every hierarchy, with few exceptions, they have shown themselves to be these mindless order followers who are willingly inclined to not only subjugate the population, but also willing to remove members of the population by any means necessary. And what do I mean by this? You should already know by now that a lot of people that died during the scamdemic, they died because of intentional malpractice. Intentional. Premeditated. There was no invisible bug, infecting people. It was a scam used as an alibi, as a pretext to murder people of every age, of every creed, of every class. Okay? And doctors and nurses are the prime culprits. Because they should know better. They should know better. And a lot of them have been revealed to be criminals. Criminals. Okay, criminals. What the Rona has done, and this is what I believe, the Rona had an amazing effect. It was a great phenomenon of tremendous implications because it has revealed people to be beasts and barbarians and animals and brutes, right? Because I think we can all remember how we were bullied to wear a mask, how we were bullied to take the milkshake after booster. We were bullied and we were threatened in every way, shape, or form. right? So this is what the Rona has truly done. The Rona has exposed people for who they really are. We have seen the world's true face. People have shown their true colors. They're monsters. People are monsters. Right? Every single day for 2 years during this scam. Right? People behaved as if, a bunch of, stereotypical fascists. Fascists. If you weren't wearing a mask, they might be inclined to shoot you right then and there. Or maybe ask some questions, or maybe even arrest you. This is how a lot of people behaved. I remember certain episodes during the lockdowns where, people, gave me perplexing glances, or they said certain things, or they outright threatened and bullied me to wear a mask, but I never did, right? And maybe you have examples like this to share, right? It's incredible to me that something like this could be believed to be genuine. And then, when certain people ask, when all of the atrocities of past history happen, how could all of these terrible things happen? Well, you're looking at one. You know why all of the bad things happen in history? You know why all of these atrocities happen? Because people are dumb. Because people are dumb. They're dumb. And they're vicious, vile creatures. That, bro, listen. People just need an excuse to hurt somebody else. That's it. That's it. If the law allows them during a crisis, people will jump on that shit immediately. And during the Rona, myriads and multitudes of people behaved, like a bunch of brutes. Right? Like a bunch of brutes. Like a bunch of roughhousing peasants. But of course, also, I attack, all of these medical terminologies and all of these medical terms which have been proven to be hogwash. Okay? There has been a lot of nonsense that has been accepted as fact in the medical field. And, after my research, I have concluded, as a lot of other people have, that all of the dumbness, all of the stuff that was promoted during the scam, it was a bunch of nonsense. The V word, the creepy crawly, has not been proven to exist. And it cannot be proven to exist because it does not exist. But people, they are so vacuous. They're so empty. And they are so comfortable that they will believe any dumb shit that comes from official sources. And this is another thing that I tackle in the book. I truly believe that people can believe the most idiotic thing possible, the most preposterous thing imaginable, if it comes from official sources. If it comes from people, wearing lab coats. If it comes from, pedestals and pulpits. Right? People will believe the dumbest story possible. They will never believe the simple truth. Okay? This is what it is. This is what it is. Right? And of course, listen. There are a lot of dum-dums out there who ask, well, if this was premeditated, how can it be possible? There are far too many people involved. And most of all, they ask, why would the people in power do such a thing? Let's say that again. They ask, why would the people in power do such a thing? Why would they commit such a deception on such a global scale? And if you ask this question, you show that you have absolutely no intelligence whatsoever. Because your actual question should be, why wouldn't they do this? That's what your question should be. Why wouldn't the people in power do this? Shit, I would do this, and I'm just some average schmuck. Okay? Of course they're gonna do whatever needs to be done. Why would the people in power do this? Because they have all the power and all of the connections in the world. And most of all, the people in power, they don't like the general population. Okay? So your question shouldn't be, why would the people in power do this? Your question should be, why wouldn't they do it? You're so gullible. You're so naive. Listen, bro. This is not some silly conspiracy theory. Conspiracy has been proven as undeniable fact. Undeniable fact. And some of the culprits, or at least the minions and the lackeys of the true culprits, have shown themselves time and time again, over and over again. So there are no theories anymore. And there are no hypotheses in this book of mine, right? I tell it how it is. Simple, in simple language, no problem, okay? And another reason why a lot of people swallowed this gobbledygook is because they cannot imagine a single second. They are unable to imagine or entertain the idea that policemen want to do harm, that policemen aren't here to protect the public. They cannot imagine that the military isn't here for our sake. They cannot imagine that politicians in the highest offices of power, they cannot imagine that these politicians are working against our best interests. They cannot imagine that high religious people have always been against the public at large. They cannot imagine this. And they certainly cannot imagine that these esteemed individuals, like doctors and nurses, might have ulterior motives to commit harm unto their patients for a little bit of cheese. Okay, they cannot imagine this. Why would they do this? Aren't they good people? Listen, people are easily corruptible. They're easily corrupted by fortune, by advantages, by privileges, right? Just because you imagine that you wouldn't be corrupted doesn't mean that everybody else is like you. Most people can be bought easily, right? Especially if they are protected by the powers that be. Okay? Remember at the beginning all of these nurses and physicians who were dancing with, mannequins or bodies, and they were doing a meme on it on TikTok. Remember that shit? I thought that a crisis was underway of global proportions, and these esteemed doctors and nurses were dancing with mannequins, and as if mocking, as if in derision. Allegedly, people were dying, and here were our protectors against disease and illness, pulling a meme on us. I have a repetitive theme throughout this book, which is that the fictional protagonist goes around meeting doctors and people who believe this nonsense, and he simply asks these people who are so gung-ho, he simply asks them, what is the medical definition of a V word? Right? And, of course, if you ask this question, even today to most people, they have absolutely no fucking idea. Right? And mostly they have absolutely no fucking idea that the V word, the V creatures, aren't real. They don't exist. They have never been proven to exist. But this is what I want to get at. The sheer hypocrisy and ignorance of most people. They don't even have they don't even have the conviction or the or the self-respect to know, the official mainstream definition of a V word. Ask most people today, what is a V word? What is the medical definition of a V word? They have absolutely no fucking idea. But they believe that this thing actually happened. The scamdemic. They believe that it is true, that a lot of people went deceased because invisible things were spreading and infecting, and they were contagious. Right? It's insane. And then, when you do a bit more research, you find out that a lot of real physicians and virologists and every other specialist with a backbone, in the past, believed that V words were scam, right? So this is what I subscribe to. I've done research on it. It seems to me that all of the symptoms that are ascribed to the V word, to the invisible buggers, they are absolutely indistinguishable from the common cold, from influenza, from the sniffles. And if you remember, just as the Rona emerged, just like that, just by magic, the common cold disappeared. The sniffles disappeared. Nobody was getting sick anymore. Except with the Rona. Right? Nobody had cancer anymore. Nobody had syphilis anymore, or a billion other illnesses. No, they all had the Rona. Right? And this is a point that I make. Just as this thing started, the common cold disappeared. Just like that. You know why it disappeared? The reason the common cold disappeared is because it was rebranded as the Rona, you big dummy. You big dummy. Right? So the common cold was rebranded as the Rona, and people believed it because it came from lab coats who were official and who were trustworthy, apparently. Okay? It's crazy, right? And I make another point. Just when this thing started, just like that, terrorism disappeared overnight, as if, suicide bombers are afraid of getting the sniffles or whatever. Just like that overnight. Even terrorists went into lockdown and quarantine, but because I guess that they were afraid to die of a fever. Right? It's crazy. And this is the main argument that I make in the book, is that the truth is so plainly obvious, so in your face, laughing at you, and most people still can smell the roses. They can't face the music because they're blind, they're dumb, they're deaf, and they are incredibly credulous. What I would guess is the real definition or explanation as to what happens to a person when they get the cold or the sniffles. So this is what even the ancients, who I would say were brighter than we are today, of course, even the ancients, they attributed the symptoms of the common cold to a buildup of toxins in the body. So it happens in the body, inside. There are no external interventions whatsoever. And you can also make the argument that a lot of illnesses and diseases, and I am not the only one that's saying this, but the symptoms of a lot of diseases, they happen internally. They do not occur because some invisible thing comes from the exterior and infects you. Okay? It does not happen. When a buildup an accrual, a congregation of toxicity happens in the body. Your body desperately has to get rid of all this poison, all of this venom. This is what happens, okay? And it makes sense when you really look at it, right? So this is what happens. Because you're so full with poisons, your body has to get rid of them. What happens? You leak from your eyes, from your nose, from your mouth, from everywhere else. You sweat a lot, fever, you have to drink a lot of water to get rid of all of these toxins. Okay, this is why you sweat so much when you have the common cold. It is because you're filled with poison and your body is trying to expunge the poison via liquids, urination and defecation, sweating, and all of the others, leaking nose and such. It's not because you're filled with invisible buggers who are causing mischief. It is because you are dead ass poisoned with toxins, and you did it to yourself because of a bad diet, a bad mindset, not enough hydration, not enough minerals and vitamins, etc., etc. Too much alcohol, too much of everything. Okay? There's so much that your body can take before it overflows and it reaches the pinnacle of toxicity. And that is why people go through these stages that are called the symptoms of the common cold. Right? You don't have bugs inside of you that are microscopic. You're literally filled with poison, and your body is fighting to get rid of this poison. Okay? So this is what the common cold is. Okay? This is what it has always been. And that is why I suspect that a cure has not been found, and that is why a cure will never be found for the common cold. Because it is not a disease. It's not an illness. It's not an ailment. It is simply your body is filled with toxins. And these toxins come from within, from an accrual, from an amassment of toxins. Okay? That is why there will never be a cure for the common cold. Ever. Because it isn't what we assume it to be. And yes, I am making the claim that a lot of people in the medical field and the pharmaceutical complex, they know this for a fact, and they've been making a lot of money for a lot of years because people are so fucking naive and gullible, right? Because they tell you it happens because of microorganisms. You simply accept it unconditionally, and you pay up for all of your pharmaceutical cures, right? And this is another thing that I have discovered doing research. Okay, all of these cures that you buy when you're sick, for your nose, for your sore throat, for the coughing, all of these things, you cough, you have a runny nose because you are literally leaking all of the toxins out of your body. That is why it happens. That is why you are coughing so much. It is because your body wants to get rid of all this shit that is in your body. That is why you're coughing, right? But the so-called cures in pharmacies, okay, they are not cures. Because obviously, you're not suffering from a illness. What the cures from the pharmacies are, they're 1, placebos, and 2, they are something else entirely. And you will make the argument, you see, when I take, coughing syrup or spray something in my nose, they stop, they lessen. And you know why this is happening? This is not happening because the cough syrup is killing all of the microorganisms that are viral in your body. No, the coughing syrup and the nose spray and all of those pills you take, they are almost anesthetic, which numb, all of your, what you might call them, synapses or nerve endings. And because of this, because your nerve endings are numb, that is why your cough lessens, right? Because if you immediately stop your treatment with cough syrup and such, your nerve endings and your synapses, they are not numbed anymore by anesthetic, and you will continue to cough. Okay? When you suffer from the common cold, you do not get better by taking treatment from the pharmacy. You get better after a week or so because you have sweated all of the toxins out, you have coughed the toxins out, you have expectorated a lot of snot. That is why you get better from the common cold. Okay? It is not because you're taking pills or because you're sniffing that or some sort of syrup. The body heals itself. Okay? Your immunity are janitors that remove the trash. Okay? That is what your immunity is. And listen, folks, listen. Every day in your body, a lot of cells die. I forgot the number, but it's crazy. Like, was it a couple of billion? I don't even remember, right? So every day, a lot of cells die in your body. I forgot what the number is, millions or billions, whatever, right? So every day, you have a lot of dead cellular tissue in your body, right? Some people's body are healthier. That means that they can get rid of all that dead tissue, all of those dead cells quickly. Some people have slower bodies because of a whole lot of reasons, diet and etc. Right? So think about this. If your body is slower in getting rid of all those dead cells, right, you're going to have an amassment, a conglomeration, right? So every day, more and more dead cells accumulate, right? So if you have dead cells inside of you, dead tissue, right? Of course, you're gonna poison yourself. You got rotten fucking, biological material inside of you. And your body is not coping with the, expulsion. Right? So think about that. Right? It makes sense to me. Right? That is one of the reasons why you get sick with the common cold and its symptoms. There is no Rona floating about in variations and variants and versions. It ain't as such, Bubba. It ain't. Okay? And this was a funny connection that I discovered during my research. When this began, we all heard about, the similarity and the suddenness with the Spanish influenza of 1919, right after the First World War, where a whole lot of people died, right? The Spanish influenza killed more people than the First World War, apparently, allegedly, all right? It was devastating. I call it the Spanish flu deja vu. So I thought, wait a minute. Let's go back to logic here. Let's go back to logic. You have a lot of dead cellular material inside of you. They amass, you get toxified, and you're gonna suffer. So, right after the First World War, we had a lot of dead bodies hanging around, right? And right after the First World War, there were a lot of dead bodies, right? So think about that. You have all of this dead flesh everywhere, rotting, decaying, everywhere. And horses too, animals, not just people, right? And they decay, and they go into the earth, and they poison all the water, and they poison the air, etc., etc. It's gonna take time to clean all of this mess. So, to me, it is no surprise, and it is no mystery why the so-called Spanish flu claimed so many bodies, right? It is because there were a lot of dead bodies to begin with, which poisoned everything with decay, putrefying, rotting. It makes sense. It's logical. Let's make an experiment. Hang around some, go into a supermarket and hang around a lot of expired, chicken and pork. Let's see if you're going to do well, right? You're not going to do well. You're going to be poisoned, by the fumes and by the fucking leaking liquid and such. Putrefaction, decomposition. It is extremely nasty, right? And I could go on for hours about this subject. I am not the first one to make such claims. I am not the most important. There have been a lot of people, even doctors that came out, specialists that came out, even in the beginning, and they said clearly, bro, this is a scam, bro. What are you doing? What are you doing, bro? But of course, the general population doesn't give two shits about anything. So there is no surprise why such a thing was allowed to happen, right? And listen, I make the argument in the book concerning all of these dum-dums, these knuckleheads who not only got the milkshake, but they are desperately inclined to force other people to get the milkshake as well, to get the needle, right? And my argument is to all of you dum-dums, my question is, how can you have a cocktail injected into your body whose content you have no idea of? How can you get injected with a serum if you do not understand the components and the ingredients, right? Just because it comes from a doctor, from a nurse, from a medically trained individual, you think that, listen, bro, listen, I will always make this bet. I dare any person to go into a vaccination center, and I dare them to ask a nurse or a doctor for the ingredients of the milkshake. And I bet your ass that those people, most of those people, have absolutely no idea what they are injecting into people. Absolutely no idea whatsoever. But they did it anyway, for money, and because they're brainwashed. There's a lot of mind control happening everywhere. But mostly it's due to ignorance and an obedient, gullible nature, right? This was a massive, a widespread global euthanasia program, bro. That's what it was. Chemical euthanasia. Infertility and all sorts of other serious problems that people cannot connect the dots. They just cannot connect the dots because they cannot conceive that all of these official people, experts, specialists were, one, wrong, and two, they were conspiring to do harm unto the public. They can't even, for the life of them, dare to imagine such a outcome. They can't. Because they're gullible. Okay? They're gullible. In their view, such a thing is impossible. Right? And listen, I don't argue with people anymore. I've grown tired of making arguments with silly, gullible, mindless people. And back in the day, people would ask me, why aren't you getting jabbed, bro? Why aren't you getting the booster, bro? And I was like, because I don't want to. We don't have to be all the same. Okay? And when they would insist They would bring all of the positive arguments that it's healthy, that it's good for you, you gotta trust all of these people, blah, blah, blah. I would say, you're absolutely right. Go back to sleep. Because it is a sleep for the brainless, and you have earned it. You deserve it, right? And I know I'm gonna get a lot of bad comments from NPCs who, think this is just conspiracy bullshit. You know what I tell these people? I tell them the exact same thing. You're absolutely right. Nothing is wrong. This is what I tell them. I tell them, you're absolutely right. Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. It's a good sleep for the brainless. And if you've been paying attention, a lot of people today have been revealed to be asleep in more ways than one. They are sleepwalkers, right? They are sleepwalkers. People are sleepwalkers, right? And they cannot be woken up. They cannot be woken up. It is a good sleep for the brainless because there's bliss in it, in ignorance. There's happiness in bliss, right? Even though all of the evidence is so apparent, so visceral, so obvious, people will refuse to accept it because it might ruin their little habitat, their little bubble of reality. Okay? So I don't try to wake people up. Fuck that shit. I'm too busy writing books and shit, right? I could have published this book at the beginning of 2023, maybe even earlier, but I hesitated because, I wanted to see how things play out. I wanted to see how the agenda might unfold. But, I got tired of waiting, so I published it. Because, I don't know if you've noticed, but now another stage in the agenda is unfolding. And it is, of course, all of this alien invasion nonsense and all of this AI takeover nonsense. I don't know if this is phase 2, but it is, of course, it is a distraction, a diversion. It's keeping people asleep. The alien agenda and the AI takeover. I can't take it seriously. I just don't have the energy to even investigate this lame-ass subject that people take seriously for some reason. So, who knows what the future might hold for us? Nothing really surprises me. Nothing shocks me. I am too misanthropic. I'm too drained. My soul is withered because of people. People have a terrible effect on me. Their dumbness is corrosive. It's acidic, right? Their mediocrity is harmful. And I could go on, but this video is already long. Listen. This book, Year of the Mask, will probably ruin my whole career. It's a fact. I'm probably gonna get banned from everywhere. But it is what it is. The truth had to be told. Whatever. Who cares? Right? And I guess, this is about it. Listen. If you want to support your boy, you can search for Griffith Samsara on Amazon, or you can click the link below and maybe buy some of my books if you want to support your boy, right? So that's about it. It's been 2.5 years since this stupid bullshit happened, and where did the time go? It's like waking up from a prolonged dream, right? And a lot of people today still believe that what happened was the real McCoy And they believe that if they have taken the serum, the milkshake, the needle, the booster, they think that they're okay. And the most imbecilic thing ever, they imagine that the Rona ceased to be because they took the milkshake. Of course it did. Right? You can't talk to these people. These people hurt my soul. Right? This is what they imagine. They imagine that all of this went away because they got their little injection, their little dose. Of course it did, silly. Of course it did. Go back to sleep. And I forgot. This is probably the last little intervention. Because this video is getting long. But in the beginning, when the quarantines were underway and we were all recommended isolation by force, if necessary, a lot of people had to work from home, which is fine. That shit is crazy good. And a lot of kids, they stayed at home because school was canceled. Pretty much everybody was canceled by the new normal. The new normal. It ain't my normal, bro. So a lot of people had to stay home. And if you remember, a ton of people complained about this. By the fact that they had to stay at home in their pajamas and work with a few clicks. This was what was their job. They worked from home in their pajamas, and they were getting crazy. Cabin fever. They couldn't handle the silence. They couldn't handle the thoughts in their own minds. They couldn't handle being alone. They had mental problems, mental health issues, you know. They were getting emotional. They were getting berserk. Right? And to me, it's like, bitch, I've always been alone. This is the best thing to me. Alone, solitude doesn't scare me. It's the best thing ever. And here we had billions of people shaking in their underwear because they had to stay at home by themselves, playing video games and watching fucking Try Not to Laugh compilation. I would suggest that all of these people should stop immediately with their performance of, swaggering about and being, confident, because the illusion has been shattered, folks. The illusion has been shattered. Most people pretend. Most people are fake and phonies. And I simply do not interact with people because it is one of my sacred rules. I don't have time for people. Right? People don't interest me. People don't impress me. Okay, so, and it's so shameful, so embarrassing. I don't understand how can they walk around with their heads held high? Because they were scared shitless of being by themselves in their own homes, right? Isolation, lockdown, quarantine. Oh boy, I gotta play video games. I gotta sit in front of my computer in my own room and work, allegedly, right? Mental health problems, mental health issues. I remember just watching video after video back in the day of people just complaining about, people were getting antsy. I gotta sit at home in my pajamas. Oh boy, I'm going crazy. Cabin fever. And here I was throughout this just chilling by myself, laughing at these simple-minded people. Simple-minded, right? Most people can handle the most simplest things possible. Being by yourself was a serious conundrum, a serious crisis? The fuck? And I keep making this argument. If a real calamity comes our way, most people will be vanquished because they don't have the internal resources to endure anything that is outside of their comfort zone. It's crazy, right? And okay, listen. Okay, this is truly the last time I'll interject here. I follow certain people because I'm an observer and I'm a researcher. I follow them online. And there's this group of people. They're smart, you know. They got the brains. They're not a bunch of dummies, you know. And, you know, I don't think that they're naive or gullible. But still, all throughout this scam, these people that I think are intelligent they were proponents and promoters of all of this bullshit. They were like, stay safe, folks. You know, wash your hands 6 feet apart. Be careful, folks. Stay healthy. You know. And I'm just like looking at these people who I think are smart, and I'm just like, how can this be? How can intelligent, bright, awake people who know shit, how can they swallow this gibberish? How can they believe in this? Stay safe. Keep the distance. Wash your hands. Wash your hands. Like, what the fuck? Okay, listen. The final question, I'm getting the fuck out of here. You know, it was implied, seriously, back in the day when this started, that any kind of contact or close proximity with another might prove to be contagious and fatal, right? So that is why you had to maintain the distance and put your mask on and rub yourself with lotion and, you know, sterilizing alcohol. So I kept asking myself during the lockdowns and quarantines, I asked myself, with all of these measures and preventions and, you know, sterilizing products, with all of this isolation and fear of other people, because that's what it really was. People were afraid of people, period. So with all of this, I kept asking myself, bro, are people still fucking? That's what I was asking myself. Were people still fucking? Right? Were they using protection? Like, right? So you're telling me that for 2 years, people were not fucking at all. Because they were afraid of contact. Because contact meant, you know, infection. Right? And I wonder, if you wore a condom, was that enough? Did it suffice? Or did you have to wear 2 condoms at once to protect yourself? Right? So I'm really curious about this, and hopefully somebody's gonna tell me in the comment sections where people still fucking for 2 years during the lockdowns and quarantines, because I'm curious about this. It's not, you know, a sick fetish, folks. This is for research purposes. I'm a scientist, bruh. Right? And I need to know. And most importantly of all, the main question. Now that this is over, have people begun to fuck again without protection of any sorts? Now contact is A-okay because you got a milkshake in your bloodstream that may be even more deadlier than, you know, what it was meant to combat, right? So you can't have these double standards and contradictions. You just can't. It's silly. It's hypocritical. And I, for one, cannot tolerate silly, goofy hypocrisy of any sort. It's disgusting. Fuck out of here with that bullshit, boy. Okay? There was this... Yeah, I'm not stopping. Sorry. I keep on going. So there was this implication, this assumption that this V word that does not exist, that it kept on mutating, it kept on, you know, changing, you know, mutating. All sorts of variants and variations, you know, that don't exist, but people believed it. So it was alleged that, you know, every time the scientists, the real big brain people came up with another vaccine, the virus was like 10 steps ahead. It was mutating, going crazy, variations, and the vaccine just couldn't match it. Right? Just couldn't match it. We just couldn't you know, keep on its trail, right? And all of a sudden, just like that, just like magic, out of nowhere, it stopped mutating. It went away. I guess the Rona got bored and retired prematurely. Isn't that something? But of course, the simpletons of the world are gonna believe, well, we got the milkshakes, we got the needle, and the Rona just can't handle it. It's not tough enough. We've been toughened by the milkshake in our veins. Well, sure you have, buddy. Sure you have. Right? And a final little truth drop, or a bit of wisdom. It seems to me, and I haven't come up with this stuff, but it's really juicy and delicious to realize finally that the cure has turned out to be way more fatal, way more dangerous, way more extreme and harmful than the illness that it's trying to combat. So that the cure, the antidote, is now way more deadly than our subject. The antidote, I believe, has claimed way more bodies than this silly, goofy nonsense that does not exist. Right? And I guess this is philosophical in a way, when you truly find out that, yes, indeed, the road to hell, the road to atrocity, the road to euthanasia, the road to, genocide is paved with good intentions by simple-minded, cretinous, gullible half-wits. Right? There are a few quotes at the beginning of this book that I find are relevant. And I'm gonna quote you one because I think it is the most juicy one out of all of them. And it comes from our good friend, H.G. Wells. And he says, I must confess that I have lost faith in the sanity of the world. This is what H.G. Wells says. He says, the crisis of today is the joke of tomorrow. Let me repeat that. This is coming from H.G. Wells. He says, the crisis of today is the joke of tomorrow. The crisis of today is the joke of tomorrow. And fortunately for us who are in the know, the crisis of today is the joke of today, right? And a lot of people have to catch up because they believe that this was a serious disaster, a calamity, devastation, right? Which proves finally that they have absolutely no idea what a true crisis is. What a true crisis is. They have absolutely no concept. They think that for most people in civilized countries, a calamity to them is not having Wi-Fi and forgetting your password and where's the phone charger? This is a crisis for most people. And they have absolutely no awareness of how grotesquely shameful they are. The crisis of today is a joke of tomorrow. Is the joke of tomorrow. And there are a lot of clowns and jesters and harlequins around us, folks. Okay, so that's about it. I'm out of here. Year of the Mask, Griffith Samsara. The link will be down below on Amazon. Thanks for watching. And I guess the only reaction we can have is just laugh at all of this nonsense. Like, what else are we gonna do, right? So, see ya.